Hill, Director of Fiscal and Economic Research at the Illinois Policy Institute. When I read this, I had to stop and read it again because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Hi, Bryce.
Hey, Fawn, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well.
How does a pensioner collect over $93,000?
Well, you have a series of terrible miscalculations and errors and a lot of corruption in the state of Illinois. We're the most corrupt state in the nation, if you haven't heard any of the most recent news with Mike Madigan. And we built a system over decades where politicians have essentially bought an entire class of workers and voters by promising them massive retirement benefits, more in retirement benefits than most Illinoisans make in their working lives.
It's more than most of the pensioners made in a year that they're getting after they retire.
Yeah, I mean, yes, pensions are going to go up every single year, so it doesn't take very long for a pensioner to start to exceed what they were making during the course of their career, because most people, when they retire from the public sector in Illinois, you can cap out somewhere around 75 or 80%, depending on your retirement system that you retire from. So you get automatically, day one, 80% of your salary, and that grows a compounded 3% every year for most retirees right now. And
That's
so,
insane.
In just 4 or 5 short years, you very quickly are earning just as much as you were during your career, and then after that, it's all gravy.
That's why y'all are broke. I mean, we know that's why the pension system is such a mess over there, and it's why your taxes are so high. One of the biggest reasons. Plus, they just keep finding new ways to tax you.
Yeah, and then it's all to keep the system running. The system, the 5 state-run systems, not to include any sort of local or City of Chicago systems, 5 state-run systems have almost $150 billion worth of unfunded pension liabilities.
Just 5.
So, just 5 systems. It's for teachers, it's for state employees, state universities, the General Assembly, and for judges across the state. Those 5 systems have almost $150 billion in unfunded pension liabilities. Their funded ratio is just above 40%, and that number continues to grow every year. Then the unfunded liabilities continue to grow every year because, as you said, that massive growth, and we've been talking about that massive growth in benefits, is the reason why we're going broke. It's the reason why 20% of the state budget that was just signed a couple weeks ago and went into effect today is going to be sent to pay pension payments. It's the reason why the plans actuaries say we need to be spending $4 billion more than we currently are every single year. So instead of spending $11 or $12 billion, we need to spend about $16 billion from the state's budget to be able to actually fund the current level of benefits that are promised.
Just peanuts. That's just peanuts, right? Yeah. So how much does an average Illinoisan make? What's the average salary over there?
Typical Illinoisans making just under $70,000 a year. It's around $65,000 a year. And the typical pensioner, meanwhile, newly retired person, is going to be making $90,000+ a year.
Makes perfect sense. All right. So now I know teachers aren't making $70,000 a year, are they?
Eventually in retirement, yeah, many of them are, but it's not necessarily inside the teacher's retirement system. A lot of the highest earners there are administration. Mm-hmm. So when you look at the very highest earners, we have many pensioners in the teacher's retirement system that, one, are not teachers. They're superintendents, they're principals, things like that. Mm-hmm. And they are oftentimes bringing in hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes upwards of $200,000 or more. We've seen instances as high as $400,000 for superintendents in their retirement. So it's absolutely crazy. There's no cap on exactly how high those promised benefits can go, regardless of what your salary was during your career or what the taxpayer, who is the one who has the guarantee that is backing, pays for this sort of pension. No matter what they earn, those benefits continue to go up.
So what is wrong with your lawmakers? Because I know third graders who could do this math and see that it doesn't math.
Well, I think a lot of the math has to do with money that comes in for political campaigns and the sources. Mm-hmm. So public sector unions are a big spender when it comes to elections in the state and across the nation, but particularly in Illinois. So that's one thing. So you have not only a bunch of money for the system, but you have a very large voting bloc and a very large activist base built into that, because people are highly invested in keeping these very generous benefits, and the union bosses do a very good job of scaring members, frankly, into thinking that anybody who talks about something like pension reform is going to be taking away your benefits, when it's simply not the case. The people who are being most protected by the status quo, by people refusing to address the pension issue in the state, are those six-figure pensioners. They're the superintendents. They're the people at the top of the food chain who are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. It's not your typical career teacher who maybe at the very end of their career was making somewhere around $70,000, and then in retirement is going to be making $50,000. Those aren't the kinds of people who are the ones that are truly benefiting off this system. And the shame of it is, the longer this goes on, I mentioned the funding ratios are about 40%. That is dangerously close to what actuaries consider the point of no return, meaning that regardless of what happens with additional contributions and regardless of what happens with investment returns, it is very likely that system, it's much more likely that system goes to zero rather than being able to pay out the benefits that have been promised. And when that happens, it's the people in the middle. It's your average teacher down the street who is going to be hurt the most because they've been lied to. They've been told their pension's a promise, while their union leadership has fought tooth and nail to prevent any sort of progress from being made on the issue and stop it from being funded. And so down the line somewhere, those are the people who are most at risk of seeing retirements cut, truly cut, because of the lack of political will to do anything on the pension issue.
All right. So anytime I see an Illinois license plate, I always wonder why they stay there. I just can't imagine it. I know there are parts of Illinois that are very beautiful. I know that there are some people who make very good money in Illinois and they have great pensions they were promised. I'm okay with people keeping a promise, but this promise has got to be adjusted, or y'all aren't going to have anybody to pay taxes to pay these pensions, which you were saying is where you're at 0.0 very, very soon if this doesn't change.
Yeah, I agree with you. The pensions are a promise, and the easiest way to break that promise is to continue with what we're doing now. Mm-hmm. There's not going to be money left in the system, and that's, I think, what people don't understand, is that the people who are fighting for pension reform, sure, I mean, yes, it is driving people out of the state, and the state is going broke trying to pay for this system, and taxes are going up, and that is part of the equation. But the other part of the equation is the people who are relying on these pensions for their retirement. Nobody wants to see teachers or policemen or firefighters not have any sort of retirement security after dedicating their lives to public service. That's just not the case. What we want is a sustainable solution that, one, makes sure that money is there for them, and then two, is reasonable enough so that the people who back that, the taxpayers, can afford to pay it. Nobody's talking about slashing benefits to pennies on the dollar for teachers across the board. In fact, in 2019, when we made a big push for a big amendment to allow for these sorts of changes, we had an entire proposal that would have capped exactly how much you can withdraw at any given time to somewhere around that $100,000 mark. It would have limited the number of six-figure pensioners we could have. It would not have affected any of the current benefits for any retiree, and it wouldn't have affected people below that cap in practically any way, other than limiting the growth in their future benefits beyond that. And our actuarial analysis of the time showed that we would have been able to turn the system around if politicians had followed through with it. By only making changes around the margins and at the very top of the system, we could do that. But the longer we act, the more severe those changes have to become.
Well, these people who are getting voted in and bribing and doing whatever they're doing, I know the state is very dysfunctional when it comes to your government, and it's almost laughable that your governor wants to be president. But this is, if you think about it, folks, to put it into perspective for you, they keep raising taxes on everything from land to everything you buy and more. But they are actually, some of these people are getting $19 for every dollar they contributed while they worked. They are getting 190% back of what they paid. That's insanity.
Yeah, and in some cases it's even crazier than that. For those who are members of the state employees retirement system, the average lifetime benefit pays out 29 to 1. So for every $1 that's contributed, and those contributions, by the way, aren't just paid by the employee. Those are paid by the quote-unquote employer. The taxpayer is also funding many of those contributions. So for every $1, those employees are pulling out $29 in return. So what that looks like is that over the course of a career, by the time, and you also get to retire very early, by the way. So by the time retirement age comes at age 58 for the average retirement of a career worker, they've contributed, for state employees, they've contributed just under $60,000. They've contributed under $60,000. They make all of that money back within their first year of retirement because their average retirement benefit will start at $60,000. And over the course of the lifetime of their remaining life, their retirement earnings are going to total $1.7 million.
Wow. So it pays to work for the government in Illinois. That's basically the answer. If you want to get rich, go work for the government in Illinois.
Yeah, I mean, it literally does. It's not only is there a very large incentive for retirement benefits and the great things you can get there for public employees, but also public sector employees on average across everybody are making far more than your typical private sector worker. So it's not the case with every single job title and profession, but across the board on average, public sector workers are higher paid than private sector workers in their working lives, and certainly in retirement.
Excellent. Excellent information. People should know this before they vote. Where do they go to learn more, Bryce?
IllinoisPolicy.org. You can see all this, much, much more there, updated every single day.
Illinoisans, wake up. You've got to come out in greater numbers and fight back against the unions and the people who are doing this to you, because you're footing the bill, and it is seriously lopsided. Director of Fiscal and Economic Research at the Illinois Policy Institute, Bryce Hill. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for having me, Fun.
Have a good 4th. Bye-bye.